Now in this video, usually I'll give you problems and you're gonna have to find out what its domain is and what its range is. Well, if you look up here, I already kind of have defined it for you. Domain is all possible x values for a given function or set, and the range is all possible y values for a given function. Now, what does that exactly mean? Well, maybe one of the best ways to go about it is to just maybe go ahead and do an example problem. So let's get started. So if we want to find out what is the domain of this table, well, the domain is all possible x values. So if I look at this table right here, the domain, my domain, I'm going to label it D. My domain would just simply be all the x values that are in this table. So I'm gonna start from the very lowest to the very biggest number, and I look here, the lowest x value is -2. So my domain is -2, and then it's -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. This table only has these values only has these x values, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Therefore, my domain is just those values. It's just the x values that's in my table. All right, now if I want to find out what my range is, all it is what is all the possible y values. So just looking at this table, what are my y values that I'm allowed in this function? Well, I'm allowed 4, 2, 1, 0, 6, and 2. That's what these y values are. So these are the all possible y values for this table. So I'll just go ahead and organize it from smallest to biggest. So 0, 1, 2. We have 2 that repeats, but that's okay. And then we have, so 0, 1, 2, and then we have 4. And then we have 6. There we go. So if you notice, the domain is all possible x values. So if I look here, I just find what are all the x values that this table has, and that's my domain. It's not too bad. And then I look over at my range, and what are all my possible values for y? That's the range, all possible values for y. Well, all my possible values for y are right here in this table right there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and organize it and write it out like this, which I have here. The range is, and that's what these 2 dots mean, the range is, and then I put, basically it's almost like parentheses, 0, 1, 2, 4, 6. Alright, so let me go ahead and maybe do another example, maybe a little bit more of a complicated one. I already kind of have the table already here for you. I apologize, this kind of, try to draw little lines, and this is a really ghetto one. So I apologize for it being kind of bad, but here we are, we have an x and y graph, and then this purple line right here that you kind of see, that I'm kind of outlining right now, is our function. All right, so in this problem, we need to figure out what is my domain, okay, and what is my, you know what, I'm actually gonna, what is my domain, and then what is my range. There we go, that's a little bit better. Okay, my domain is all possible x values. So if I look here at this function right here that's on this graph, well, look over here. Does my function exist at -4? No, it doesn't. You see, if you notice at -4, there is nothing. There is nothing at -4. My function does not touch it whatsoever. But if you look here at what about -3? Well, at -3, it looks like our function starts, which is about right there. I'm going to go ahead and put a little dot there. Or maybe use a different color since that we already have that one. Let's go ahead and use kind of gray. So if we look right here, -3, my function starts off right there at that point. So I know my function exists at -3. That is the lowest point possible. So my domain is from -3, parentheses. And if you notice here, from -3 to -2, it still exists. It's right here. It still exists. It's in between all these numbers. And we just keep going all the way until we get to the biggest possible number, which looks like at 6. So if we look at 6, our function stops right there. Okay, at 7, it's no longer there. So 6 is the biggest possible number. So in this graph, my domain is from -3 and it's all the way to 6. Okay, from -3 all the way to 6, my function exists. Now let's go ahead and look at the range. The range is all the possible y values. So maybe I'll first start off just like I did over here. I always start off with the lowest possible number. If I look down at -4, -3, -2, -1, there is nothing here. I have no values here that show my function to be, and I just kind of keep going at 0, and once I get to 1, if you notice at 1 right here, -3 and 1, it looks like that's it looks like this right here where it starts off is my lowest y value. This is where my function actually has an output. It's right there. So my lowest range value is 1. Okay, and now I'm gonna keep going at 2. There's a value right here, and there's also a value like right about there. I go to 3, my y value is right here, and there's also one right there. I go to 4, and there's one right here, and then there's also one right there. I finally go to 5, there's one right there, and there's one right there. And then when I go to what looks like to be 5.5 right up here, this is the highest y value. This is the highest that my function gets to. So 5 is going to be my highest possible y value. Notice at 6, my function is no longer there, and that's why it is not a part of my range. Okay, so the domain is all possible x values. Well, we start with the lowest, which is -3, and we work our way to the highest, which it finally stops at 6. So from -3 to 6 is my domain. My range is the lowest y value to the highest y value. So my lowest y value is at 1, and then the highest y value I have is at 5.5, it looks like. And so that's why, oops, this right here should be 5.5. I forgot to include the other 5. There we go, 5.5. So the range should be from 1 to 5.5, not 5. My apologies.